Welcome, my children. It is I, your prophet, Al-Hazred, and I, as ever, am here to teach you the eldritch magics, the dark arts of cybersecurity. And I'm here once again in that most hallowed of holiday traditions, TryHackMe's Advent of Cyber, on day 16, when we will be exploring the immemorial lunacy, the eldritch contradictions of open source intelligence, otherwise known as OSINT or OSINT. You'll hear it pronounced a few different ways, but ultimately the objectively correct way to pronounce it is however your boss pronounces it. That's a fact. Now, what exactly is open source intelligence? Well, put simply, it's information on a target, usually a person, a company, an entity of some sort online, that you have gleaned through open source channels, from publicly available information. This publicly available information can be a very wide variety of things, such as search engines, such as Google or Bing if you're a sociopath. There's also social media, such as Twitter, your Facebook, MySpace. Showing my age a little bit there, aren't I? And so on and so forth. Social media of all kinds. There's also law enforcement agencies often have publicly available databases that you can search online. Other governmental agencies often also have databases that you can search. There's also kind of lost the plot, but you get the point what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of different platforms, publicly available platforms. The internet has exposed a wealth of information to us, and open source intelligence is about sifting through that information for specific information for about one particular target. And you would be amazed at what information is out there about anyone who has spent any reasonable period of time online. And that's why this is such an important topic. Regardless of what your work is, whether you're a red teamer or a blue teamer, or if you are not in cybersecurity at all, it's still very valuable. This is one of the most valuable modules for you because you need to be aware of necessarily the footprint that you are leaving online. It's both to protect yourself and to seek out information on others when it's necessary. Now, obviously, this is going to be a fictionalized example of open source intelligence. We're going to be gathering information on an entity that doesn't really exist in the real world. However, the techniques we're going to use are going to be very applicable, I think you'll find, to real world entities. You could use them on yourself. You could use them on your company just to see what information out there is available. And I highly recommend that you do this. You do familiarize yourself with these techniques because they're going to serve you well, no matter what walk of life you're in. Because we all use the internet. We all do. And I think we can all agree that the internet's not going away. These things are only going to become more prevalent. Open source intelligence, OSINT, is only going to become more of a hot topic as our lives become more and more online and as they become more interconnected and so on and so forth. So I highly recommend you pay close attention to what we're going to cover today. We're going to go through it. Hopefully it'll take less than 40 minutes like my last video was, but I think it will be quicker. But I encourage you to play around with the techniques that we're going to explore today. Learn new techniques because this is very valuable information we're going to cover. Without any more babbling, any more madness from me, let's just hop right into it, shall we? Let's get into it. I'm excited. So here we are on the Advent of Cyber page. We do see our questions here. First, the lore. We must absolutely know the lore. We are lore aficionados here on here. If you're watching my video, you care about the lore, okay? Now, we are a responding intelligence officer on the hunt for more information on the infamous Grinch Enterprises ransomware gang. As a response to the recent ransomware activity from Grinch Enterprises, your team has managed to collect a sample ransomware note. Now, as is the case with many malicious actors, many actual criminals out there. Not much is going to be known. Not much is known about Grinch Enterprises. That's why they're calling us, okay? They're calling us so that we can gather some information on Grinch Enterprises. We can learn a little bit more about them, okay? So before we even get started here, let us establish some kind of a note-taking platform. We are good cybersecurity practitioners. We always take good notes. My note-taking platform of choice is going to be Obsidian today. And so I'm going to bring my Obsidian notebook over here. We're going to click New Note, and we're going to put Advent of Cyber Day 16. And this is where we're going to be taking our notes for today. All right here in my Obsidian notebook, the Necronomicon, of course. So right off the bat, we see that we have a ransomware note here, and this ransomware note appears to be written in some ancient script, perhaps the tongue of the elder things found inscribed on an ancient city from before mankind beneath the snows of the Antarctic, with strange runes not meant to be parsed by our human eyes. Or very possibly it's Russian, and in fact was inscribed on a vodka bottle buried underneath the snows of Siberia. Well, we're going to find out exactly which one that is. We can use that most important and valuable of hacking tools. And I know what you're going to say. It's going to be, you're all saying it's Nmap, or it's Burp, or it's GoBuster, or it's Cobalt Strike, or it's Metasploit. No. For those of you who jumped the gun and started up your attack box, close it back down. Shut that thing down. All you're really going to need for this particular walkthrough is your web browser and an inquisitive mind. Okay? So come on along with me. The tool we're going to be using, at least to start off with, the most valuable of all hacking tools, Google. Good old Google.com. This time we're going to use Google Translate, but we're going to see a few more uses for our friend the Googs, as they call it, a little bit later. So let's type this. Let's put this in here. And alas and alack, it does turn out that it's Russian. That's a shame. I was really leaning towards the ancient language of the Elder Things. But regardless, Google Translate has parsed this, has translated this for us into the common tongue, if you will, English. Important, with no less than 6 exclamation points, so you know it's important. Your files were encrypted by the Grinch. Wow, he's really updated his tactics, as we've been finding out during this Advent of Cyber event. We use the most advanced encryption technology. Now, is it military-grade encryption? Because if I've learned anything from shows like CSI, NCIS, CSI, and that sort of thing, it's military-grade encryption that is the most valuable of all encryption. And as a person who was formerly in the military, I can tell you that the exact opposite is true in reality. Contact your Grinch Enterprises operator to access your files. Your personal ID is this. We're going to go ahead and copy this down. It probably won't be relevant to us. Remember, this is an ID generated for whoever received this ransomware note. So presumably they ransomwared a variety of machines, and each one of these machines has a unique ID to identify the particular encryption key that was used to encrypt that machine. That's usually how this kind of thing works with ransomware. So let's go ahead and mark that down in our notes, just in case we need it, but I doubt we will. Ransomware note ID. Fantastic. Let's make sure we keep comprehensive notes during this whole process. Very, very, very important. And now we see our first breadcrumb here. Grinch31. The operator assigned to your case can be contacted as Grinch31 on all platforms. Splendid. So let's go ahead and copy this username. We can put down Grinch31 in our notes. Okay? We don't know exactly what they mean by all platforms just yet, but we're going to find out. We have a username to ascribe to this ransomware group in any case. So let's, once again, use the most powerful of hacking tools, Google, and ask it about Grinch31. Alas, it doesn't seem like we see that Google is telling us that they split it into 3 words because there were no results found for Grinch31. Alas and alack, it looks like Google is not going to help us out very much in our investigation. However, I do want to take a brief segue here to point out that there's a lot more power to Google than just typing in a keyword into the phrase and into the key phrase into this and hitting enter. Okay, there's actually a lot of little tricks you can use. You could even call them hacks if you would, to pare down the results you're finding and streamline your Google results to exactly what you want to see. It's like, so for example, notice that Grinch31 has been automatically changed to this so that they could find relevant or results that were more relevant to us. Let's say we wanted to force Google to search for only results that have this string in them. Okay, this exact string. You would put them in quotes like this. And you see, we don't get any results. As Google told us before, there are no search results that it could find with this specific string in them. Excellent. So that's a little bit of Google hacking for you. We also note, I would like to note, you ever search for art on the internet? You ever search for any kind of art? What you're going to find is when you're searching for art, you often get a wide variety of things. So let's go to images, see what we get here. We see that we get results that have to do with the Grinch, of course, from a wide variety of different places. But one of these is Pinterest.com, which is a well-known art sharing community website. But the problem with Pinterest, we're going to click on this just to show you. Pinterest, you can't view the full resolution image. If you want to save it, it requires you to make an account, which I hate. So this is annoying for me. I don't particularly. Sometimes I want to filter Pinterest out of my search results, right? So how would you do that, you might ask? Well, you can just put -site Pinterest.com. Now, the site Pinterest.com identifies that you want to do something specifically to results from that particular domain. The minus says, hey, strip all results from Pinterest.com out of my results. And we do that, and we see that there is no longer any results from Pinterest.com. Now, perhaps we're going full white girl, okay? We've grabbed our double mocha lattes from Starbucks, other cliches about white women that are not really true, and being basic that are derogatory and untrue. And we want to browse Pinterest properly. We only want results from Pinterest.com. Well, my friend, then you just take the minus away, and now every single result will be from Pinterest.com. And what you're invariably going to find is that Pinterest has some fantastic art on here. Like the Grinch cosplay. Look at this. Holy cow. Look how amazing that looks, that makeup job. Jeez. My point is you're seeing only result. This is great. That's fantastic. A Christmas tree decoration of the Grinch being stuck inside of it. I really like it. That's cool. So, again, this is just a little bit of an example of what you can do to pare down your Google search results. This is often called Google Dorking or Google hacking, whatever you'd like to call it. Let's say you wanted to do something a little bit more offensive-minded, a little bit more nefarious in mind, okay? Let's see. Let's look for information. Let's say we want to find only PDF documents that contain the string password in them. Password and then file type :PDF. And what you're going to find is, my goodness, now all the results are PDF documents. And this isn't terribly useful to us, but what if we had a particular site that we wanted to attack and we wanted to look for any documents that could be exposed on their website that might have sensitive information in them? Well, my friend, then you could just do that site trick we just did. Let's just do Amazon.com as an example. And now we're getting all PDF documents on Amazon.com. And you could do this with any company, any domain, and search them using Google for any leaked information that could be valuable to us. How interesting. So again, this is called Google Dorking, Google hacking. Just a very brief introduction. Little bit of a segue from the topic of today. You don't really need to do any of this to solve the challenge today. But this is definitely something I think you should play around with and become familiar with, because Google is, as always, a very potent, a very, very potent tool in the practicing of cybersecurity. Okay, so let's go back to looking at. Let's say we wanted to search Twitter. So Grinch Who 31, which is the name of our guy, site or woman. Let's not discount the possibility that Grinch Who 31 is a woman. Women have been systemically excluded from the ransomware industry, but I personally would like to see them accepted more into the industry. Hashtag feminism, hashtag cryptocurrency. It's a little joke from me to you. Okay, so anyway, twitter.com. And we don't see anything that looks too promising, but if we click on one of these, it'll take us to Twitter. And again, this itself is not relevant. This is just some information on the Grinch movie from the Twitter account about the Grinch movie. But if we search Grinch Who 31 here on the side, we do see a result here. Neighborhood Grinch at Grinch Who 31. That's an exact match. And we see, send me all your ransom. So this does appear to be a ransomware. This does look like what we're looking for, my friends. This looks like Grinch Who 31 on all platforms, just as the note said. So let's take a look at the tweets. What tweets and replies we have here. We see that he replied to a TryHackMe content creator saying, Obsidian is better. Are they watching me, friends? Are the ransomware operators watching my note-taking? What is happening? Am I about to be ransomwared? Is this what it looks like? Do they warn you on Twitter by calling out your note-taking choices? Let's just, listen, we're going to proceed, but let's be very careful going forward, okay? Let's make sure that we're proceeding with caution. And I know you think this is probably just a joke I'm making, but you know what's not a joke? Safety. So here we are, once again, and we see that the most interesting tweet that we're seeing here is this first one right here. Verifying myself, I am Grinch Who 31 on Keybase.io. And then we have some kind of cryptographic, probably a public key of some kind here. and then a link to presumably his profile on a website called Keybase.io. Now, if you never use Keybase, if you're not familiar with it, it's essentially an online platform for helping you manage your online presence. You can connect it with all of your accounts and store cryptographic information between your accounts securely, or at least it purports to be secure. You can trade messages and files on Keybase securely. It's a platform that's mostly used for privacy on the internet. Okay, and it seems that I've never used Keybase myself, but it seems that in order to connect your Twitter, to Keybase.io, you need to make a verifying tweet like this to prove that it's actually you with the cryptographic identifier in there, so it can't possibly be forged by somebody else, ideally. So it looks like that's what this ransomware operator has done. They've made an account on Keybase.io, and they've linked it to Twitter. And this is their verification tweet, which they have pinned for us, interestingly. So why don't we check out their profile on Keybase.io here. And we do see this is the same image here as here. So you're looking for these little clues. Oftentimes it won't be, when you're doing open source intelligence online in real life, when you're doing OSINT in real life, it won't be as obvious oftentimes when you're trying to link accounts on different platforms to each other. So you want to look for little clues, like, for example, their avatar being the same and the username being the same, and so on and so forth, to prove that they are the correct person. Now, you see that Keybase has done us a service here. Grinch31 and Grinch31, as in Grinch31 on Twitter and Grinch31 on Keybase, are the same person with the same public keys. You can see this proof or close this notice. Okay, I believe we can chat with him or her here if we choose, but we're not going to do that. And we can also see a variety of other information. We see this linked back to his tweet here. This is with his linked Twitter account. And we also see, interestingly, he also has a GitHub account linked here as well. This is the GitHub logo. GitHub, a popular platform for developers for storing and updating and sharing their code. And we see a post on there as well. We can click on that, and it takes us to gist.github.com/ChristmasHater31. And we see that this is another proof post similar to the tweet that we saw. And we see he says that he's ChristmasHater31 on GitHub. Now, let's make sure keep in mind we need to be taking notes. So remember, what was his Twitter account? It was at GrinchWho31. Let's put a link to his Keybase account in here. Put a link to his Keybase account into our notes. And what was the identifier that he used on Twitter? That was this. Let's put that into our notes as well, because that uniquely identifies our Grinchy friend. So again, taking good, strong notes. And we also see his GitHub as well, which is ChristmasHater31. We can copy link to paste that in there. And we can also see this is the Bitcoin logo, and we can see what appears to be a Bitcoin address here. And we can copy that as well. So here we go. Here's what our notes look like. You see, we've already accrued. We've only been doing this for a short time. And already we have quite a bit of information at our fingertips about this individual. We have a link to a Keybase account, the unique public identifier that's used for that person. We see a link to his GitHub page, ChristmasHater31. We see his a link to his Bitcoin address. Now, what is a Bitcoin address? In cryptocurrency, a Bitcoin address is specifically the address that you send the cryptocurrency to. And this is actually something you can search for online as well. So if we copy out this address, it might be easier if we click on it and then copy it from here, because it won't copy the link like it did when I copied it into Obsidian. But we can just go to Google and we can type in Bitcoin address search or something of that nature. Bitcoin address lookup. And it's chugging along. Okay, it's taken forever. We used Ecosia by accident there. That's my default search engine. But instead, let's search for Bitcoin address lookup. That seems fine. This looks good. Let's just do this. Let's paste it in right here, and we see if we can get any information on this Bitcoin address here. Alas, this address has been transacted 0 times on the Bitcoin blockchain. It's received a total of 0 Bitcoin and sent a total of 0 Bitcoin. The current value of this address is 0 Bitcoin. So they don't appear to be a very successful ransomware gang, which is good. But it could simply be the case they just stood up this ransomware, this Bitcoin address specifically for this ransomware campaign, or they could just be a new group who's just getting off the ground, etc., etc. We don't actually know. The point is that you can also do reconnaissance on cryptocurrency information like Bitcoin addresses as well. So we have that as well. Let's go ahead and copy this into our notes once again so that we can come back and refer to it if we need to. And that appears to be all we can get off of Keybase here. We do see that he has some encryption information for a Windows device that he's connected to Keybase through. Let's now take a look at this GitHub account, which we have not dug into too much just yet. Let's kick back there. Let's click on Christmas Hater 31, and let's take a look at what we have here. Now, once again, the username is different here, but we do see it uses the same number at the end, and we see this same image as the one that was used on Twitter, right? Same image. So there's a high likelihood that this is the same person, that this is the same individual. And we see that they have 2 repositories here, Christmas Stealer, which appears to be written in C++, and Christ Bash Tree, which appears to be written in probably Bash. It just says shell, but it's probably Bash from the name. So let's click on Christmas Stealer, and we see a file called ransom.cpp. Now, CPP stands for C++. So this is C++ source code. Now, this is not actual ransomware code. Okay, so don't think about you going to compile this to, become your own script kiddie ransomware operator. Okay, that's not, okay, no. First of all, no. First of all, just no. Okay, on all counts, just no. This is not actual ransomware code. It appears to be just be doing memory management. We see lots of calls to malloc and so on and so forth. It appears to just be managing memory predominantly. But we do see a reference to that address that we just talked about, that Bitcoin address, which if we look in our notes, it's the same address. Same address. So this is likely a piece of their ransomware code. It's not the whole source code, but this is probably a piece of their ransomware code. Spectacular. We're getting information out of them. Okay? Let's go back to Christmas Stealer. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind about GitHub. Okay? Now, this is very, very important. By the nature of how Git works, like how Git works, Git is version control software. GitHub is simply an online repository of Git repositories, of Git-based repositories. Git is a version control, is a piece of version control software for managing code, for tracking code as it's modified and changed and developed over time. Developers use it to track the changes and updates they're making to their code. So by its very nature, Git stores and tracks all versions of your code that have ever been made, so that you can view the changes, you can view the old code, you can revert back to old code, you can make new branches and offshoots from your current code, you can merge with other code bases. You can do a wide variety of stuff. Git is actually fairly complicated. But what the key thing to understand about how Git works is that it's always tracking your changes, and the changes are always recorded. That's the whole point of it. The whole point of it is to track the changes to your code, so that you can revert back to an old version if you need to at any point. For example. So, and you can look at these changes with this commit button here. So if you click commit, you can see all the changes that have been made to this code. A commit is basically a change that the developer committed to the code at some point. So let's look at this. We see anything in green is something that was added during that commit. So since there's only one commit, we're just going to see all in green because that's when the developer added this file to the repository, ransom.cp, and it's all going to be in green. Okay, so there's not too much interesting stuff to see with this ransom.cp CPP program here. So let's head back. We see that there's another repository right here. So let's click on this, and we see a couple of files here. Tree.sh. Let's click on this, and if we glance through this, we see it's very likely it appears to be a bash script for making a pretty Christmas tree thing appear in your terminal. Go ahead and run it at your own risk if you so choose. I don't think there's anything malicious in this. I don't think there's anything malicious. I don't think anything malicious is going to happen here if you run this. But obviously, run it at your own risk. Don't come to me like, Al, I got actually ransomwared by that shell script. First of all, you're not going to get ransomwared by something you found on TryHackMe. But my point is, run at your own risk, okay? We don't see any passwords, any interesting information in here. So we go back. We see that there's also a license document we can look at. Also, nothing super interesting in here. We also see a Docker file because the ransomware operators are super kind enough to add a nice Docker file for us to spin up this shell script in a Docker container. How nice of them, if we so choose. But remember, versions, previous versions. And over here we see 4 commits. So that means there have been 4 changes to this repository since it was created. So let's go ahead and click on this. And let's check the initial commit. And it seems that initially the developer only added the license file. This is the license file, and we see it's all in green. And let's look at the last commit really quickly. And my goodness, we see something in red here. We see tree.sh, and we see some deletions. We see 2 deletions from tree.sh, and these were the lines. You can see they're in red, so they were removed. And you may remember not seeing this in the actual tree.sh file. If we look at tree.sh, that stuff is not here. But it is here in your Git history. And we see created by Dante Heath. Contact DanteHeath21@gmail.com. So you might think that Pepperidge Farm remembers, but the real entity out there with the best memory is GitHub. Okay? So let's definitely copy this out. Name Dante Heath. Email DanteHeath21@gmail.com. Now, this is a very, very, very common thing in GitHub, okay? It's very, very common to find leaked information in old commits and even just sitting in public repositories in currently available code. We're talking credentials. We're talking API keys. We're talking session tokens. We're talking sensitive personal information. We're talking all kinds of stuff. because it's common for people to just maybe not know how Git works, or simply to just not really think about it. They're just, keep in mind what developers are doing. They're not really concerned about security all that much. They're concerned about getting their code out, making their boss happy, and finishing their job for the day. They're concerned about making their code work. So security is kind of an afterthought for them, and you can't blame them. So sometimes mistakes like this are made, and it seems like our good friend, the ransomware operator, Christmas Hater 31, has fallen prey to these common mistakes. So, with that done, it seems like for right now, we've followed this line of OSINT to its logical conclusion. So let's head on back to the Advent of Cyber page and see what else awaits us. Let's see what answers we can give. Okay? So we can hit completed on that one. No answer required there. What is the operator's username? That was Grinch Who31. And remember, we got that from the ransomware note, Grinch Who31, right there. So we hit submit. What social media platform is the username associated with? Twitter, as it turns out, was the social media platform. What is the cryptographic identifier associated with the operator? Now, remember, that was this cryptographic identifier from Keybase.io that we found on his Twitter. So we can put that right in there. And what platform is the cryptographic identifier associated with? Again, Keybase.io. What is the Bitcoin address of the operator? Going back over here, the Bitcoin address is this business right here. It's actually probably easiest to copy from right here. Copy. What platform does the operator leak the Bitcoin address from? This is a little bit of a tricky question because it actually appears on two sites. We saw it on Keybase, if you remember, and we also saw it on GitHub. The answer they're looking for is GitHub. We found it on GitHub in that ransom.cpp file. What is the operator's personal email? Remember, we found that in the Git commit history. Again, very, very common mistake to make. So it was DanteHeath21@gmail.com. What is the operator's real name? Dante Heath. And just like that, we have completed yet another day of Advent of Cyber. Thanks for coming along with me on that journey. So, you learned a little bit about open source intelligence, OSINT, OSINT, however your boss pronounces it, today. I encourage you. We've only scratched the surface. This is the very tip of the iceberg when it comes to open source intelligence. There's lots of things that you can search. You can pull data from images, metadata from images that they post on Twitter. You can or from Facebook stomps metadata, but that's just another example of something we didn't even cover today that you can do with OSINT. There's the various opportunities you're going to have to extract information about an entity online is going to depend entirely on the platforms you find them on. So I encourage you to practice these techniques on real-world entities in real life. Try them on yourself and see how much information you can get about yourself just by Googling your own name. And see how much personal information you can see about yourself. Because I'll tell you, it's going to be scary, and it's going to encourage you to maybe be a little bit more cognizant about your online presence. Because again, this stuff is not going away. It's only going to become more prevalent as time goes on. Now, once again, this video has gone to 40 minutes, so I'm going to cut it off here. If you liked it, if you enjoyed my talk today, if you enjoy how I treat my passion for cybersecurity, I encourage you to check me out on other platforms such as Twitch.tv, where I stream 3 days a week doing various TryHackMe rooms of all different difficulties to appeal to all different skill levels. The link is down in the bottom left of your screen right now. Check me out on Twitter at the handle on the right. Other than that, go to bed tonight knowing a little bit more than you did yesterday, and I'll see you again when the stars are right. Have a good night, day, or whatever time it is, wherever you are. Get vaccinated, have a happy holiday, and stay safe.